Hey, welcome back on the tutorial Fibrous Malachite part 1.5. So we're gonna work on the internal structure of the crystals. Right, where we left off, we're gonna finish with this crystal. Let's add a null, we're gonna call it crystal inside. And let's drop a scatter node. I'm gonna turn off the relax iteration and decrease the number of points. Just so you see, I'm still keep a fair amount of points and drop a point VOP. So inside, we're gonna create a relative to bounding box node, and we're gonna extract the y-axis for the height. So let's take the float val2, which corresponds to the y, connect that into a ramp parameter that we set to spline, and we're gonna call it height. And the label is gonna be height density. So I'm binding that in the color just so you see. And let's create a bind export. To export an attribute we're gonna call density. The type is float. And as soon as we check density attributes, we now can control the position of the points based on this spline. So if I tweak a bit the curve, it's gonna adjust the position of the points based on the height that we are remapping. So that's a pretty cool way to control the scattering inside an object. And what we're gonna do is drop a Voronoi fracture again. Okay, let's decrease the number of points, that's a bit too much. So let's drop an explode view just so we can visualize all those chunks. Okay, let's decrease uniform scale so that they are not so spaced out. Right. What we could do now is, well, first tweak a bit more the point amount. That's pretty cool. And let's drop a RBD interior detail. So what we can do is plug the explode view after that. And now, as you can see, it should actually add a bit more detail. So right now the default values are not good enough. Let's visualize the noise scale, and you see that it's creating a mask that's gonna affect just the interior pieces. So we can tweak the frequency to add some smaller breakups and play with the interior cusp angle, but mostly the detail size that's gonna affect how dense is the mesh. The lower we reduce detail size, the more dense gonna be the mesh, and this way we will get more detail. As you can see, without and with, it's pretty cool, but we got a lot of rough area, and I'm not liking that so much. So let's decrease the roughness. Can play with the clamp depth and the depth volume resolution maybe. So let's tweak a bit the amplitude to reduce the noise effect. Okay, so in my case, I think an amplitude around 0.12 should be fairly interesting. Let's reduce the uniform scale. Oh, why bothering making that? It's mostly because if we add some refraction in shaders, it's gonna create some very cool effect inside to refract the light. And as you can see, I'm just duplicating the explode view and the edge breakups we created in the first part and mixing that together. So this way we have this turbulent noise that's basically gonna mask the explode view with a uniform scale of 0 and the explode view with a bigger uniform scale. So that way we can reveal more or less the cracks of the geometry. Can play with the min input and max input to contrast the turbulence, and I'm kind of liking what's going on now. It's like not too much, but that should bring some interesting detail in curvature and refraction when we are dealing with the shaders. So I'm gonna turn off this visualized noise scale. Okay, that's pretty cool. I'm gonna do again a bit of cleaning so that our graph is nice and tidy. So let's apply some color on the RBD interior detail, the scatter that we're gonna rename scatter chunk amount. The point VOP here could be named density attribute. All right, and the main context geo is going to be crystal A, as you wish. And at the end, we could add a ROP geometry, which is going to allow us to export our mesh as an OBJ. So I'm setting the path into the heap file folder, geo crystal, and I call that crystal A, and save to disk. So I exported an Alembic file. And that's pretty much it for the internal setup. So now we can focus on making the rock base to scatter this crystal.